Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make beef pithivier. Pithivier is a puff pastry case which is filled with most often dessert type things, an almond cream for instance, and then the puff pastry cover is scored to make a pattern. But you can have a savoury version, and this one is going to be a savoury version. And it's actually going to take 2 days because I need to do something with the meat today before I cook it. And then once it's been cooked, it has to be shredded and chilled in a bowl to create a shape for it, basically. So I'll tell you about the ingredients for the filling first, and then speak a little bit about everything else. So for the filling, I have 1 kilogram of beef, and I'm using skirt because that has a very lovely flavour, but you could use whatever beef you want basically. And it's going to cook in the oven for a long time until it's very, very tender. So I have 1 kilogram of skirt. I have 1.5 cups, 375 millilitres of red wine, and I have 6 cups, which is 1500 millilitres of chicken stock. Then I have 1 onion, which I've simply chopped into pieces, 2 sticks of celery, which I've roughly chopped, 1 large carrot, which I've chopped, and 5 star anise. And I'm going to put those into the chicken stock. Try not to splash it everywhere. And pour the wine in as well. And just mix that around. And then I'm going to put the meat in. Like that. And then I'm going to cover that and put it in the fridge to chill overnight, so that that's then ready to cook in the morning. And in the morning, what I will need is some shallots, 300 grams of shallots basically, and then later, and salt and pepper, and then later I will need some puff pastry. Now I'm going to use shop bought puff pastry, which I don't usually use, but I think for this it will be fine. And I will cook the meat, chill it, and then shape the puff pastry and fill it and bake it. So I'll be back in the morning when this is ready to be cooked. The meat is chilled in the marinade overnight. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fry that in some oil to seal the meat, and then we're going to put it into a casserole dish and bake it in the oven. So I have my oven preheating at 140 Celsius, that's 285 Fahrenheit, and that will be ready to take the meat. So what we need to do is to take the meat out of the marinade, and we need to dry it off. And I'll do this one piece of meat at a time. and then we'll fry this to seal it, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So with the oil hot, I'm simply going to fry the meat for a short time on each side. And I'm going to pour in the marinade. And I'm just going to lift the meat to let that get underneath. And then I'm going to cover that and I'm going to put it into the oven and let it cook for up to about 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer, but until the meat is cooked and it's nice and soft, because we want to be able to tear it apart. So once it's cooked, I'll come back and show you what we do next. The beef, which is skirt, is cooking with the marinade and the vegetables in the oven, and while that's cooking I'm going to saute and caramelize 300 grams of shallots, which I've peeled and sliced quite finely, and that's going to be in 20 grams of butter and a little bit of olive oil on a fairly medium to low heat. I want them to soften and then just begin to caramelize a little bit, and then I'll let them cool down. They will get mixed in with the meat once the meat has been shredded. So the shallots are now lightly caramelized and they've softened nicely, and that's as much as I need to do. So I'm going to take those off the heat, put them into a bowl to cool down, ready to mix with the meat when we shred it. So our meat is now cooked, and I cooked mine for about 3.5 hours until it was tender enough to tear apart, and I've taken it out and put it onto a plate. Now the marinade will turn into a nice gravy. I will boil that down and reduce it and turn that into a nice gravy. But for the meat, what I'm going to do is just tear that apart like that. Just shred it. And I'm going to put it into this bowl. And then with the meat in the bowl, what I'm going to do is to put the caramelized shallots in as well. And I'm going to mix the two of them together. And then I'm going to put it into a Pyrex bowl like this. And I'm going to press it down and pack it in. And with that pressed down, I'm going to let that cool just a little bit. Then I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and chill it in the fridge for at least 4 hours. And at that point, we'll roll out the pastry, fill the pastry, bake it, and then that will be our beef Pithivier made, ready for eating. The meat is now chilled in the bowl, and what I've done is I've got my puff pastry out of the fridge, and I'm ready to roll that out. And so for the first one, I need to roll that out into a circle, or I can cut out a circle which is larger than the diameter of the bowl. So if I put the bowl on there like that, you can see how big I'm going to roll it with an overlap. So I've floured the work surface, and I have also put some parchment paper, which is the size of my baking tray, because I want to be able to easily transfer this to the baking tray. So that's easily large enough. So I'm going to cut that . Like that, and I'm going to put that to one side, and then what I need to do is flour the work surface again and roll out the top of the pastry, and for that I'm using a new block of puff pastry. And this has to be rolled out larger, into a larger circle than the previous one, because it's going to cover the dome of meat. And then I'm going to roll that up onto the rolling pin and just pull that to one side. Now I'll take my dough, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn out my meat onto the dome, like that. And then I have an egg here, which I'm just going to whisk, and I'm going to brush my pastry around the edges with the egg. Like that, and I'm going to place the second sheet of pastry over the top, and I'm going to push it down onto the dome, and seal it all the way round. And then, while that's still cold, I'm going to just cut out a little circle. I could have cut this out as I was rolling really, but this will be fine. This is to let steam out as the pastry cooks. And I'm going to cut the pastry around the edge again. And then I'm going to use a fork just to crimp all around the edges like this. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into the fridge, and I'm going to chill it for 30 minutes. And while it's chilling, I'm going to preheat my oven to 180 Celsius, 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit. And then after 30 minutes, I'll come back, we'll score the top, egg wash it, and then we'll bake it. So I've let the Pithivier chill in the fridge for 30 minutes, and I've preheated my oven. So what I'm going to do now is to take a knife and just score a pattern on this dome. Now you don't want to cut right the way through the pastry, you just want to make some lines and the traditional way is a sort of curve like that. And I'm not going to do very many. Just like that. And then I'm going to take my egg wash and I'm going to brush all over the pastry. And with that done, I'm going to put that into the oven and bake it for between 30 and 40 minutes until the pastry is cooked and a nice golden brown and the meat has heated all the way through. Then I'll take it out of the oven and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. The Pithivier has baked, and I baked mine for 40 minutes, and I tested the temperature inside with my thermometer to make sure that it was nice and hot. And this is what it looks like. As you can see, the pastry is puffed up and the scored lines have formed the pattern. Now I'm actually not going to cut this now because I'm taking it over to my niece's for dinner. If I get an opportunity, I'll take a photo while I'm over there to show what the inside looks like, but I'm sure it will be fine. So that will be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, which will take you to this recipe. And I should say at this stage that this recipe is based on one that I got from Campbell Meat's website, and the recipe was designed by Nick Nairns. And I will be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.